from Maine, Florida. I hope everybody is staying healthy and well in both body and mind. I am rocking the quarantine chic here today, which means business kind of on top. I'm kind of hiding my hair and then yoga pants on the bottom, because that is how we do Zoom here in this beautiful online entrepreneurship world. For those of you guys who don't know who I am, my name is Kaye Putnam. I am the psychology-driven brand strategist. I am here to answer all of your branding questions. I'm a giant nerd, especially when it comes to branding. It's been my obsession and my life's work for a long time now. And I've been an entrepreneur in different forms and facets since I was a wee little 16-year-old. And how long? We're coming up on 2 decades. So that was a while ago. I started my first business, like I said, at 16. I was a photographer, and I quickly realized that the way that we present ourselves, the way that we show up in the market is just as important, if not more important, than the actual product or service that we provide, because there's such a small level of discernment in our clients. They don't know our industry as well as we do. So it's up to us to translate what we're doing in a way that people both understand and they desire. So to create demand for your brand, that it takes some strategic positioning and just meeting people on a very human level. So we are going to talk all about all of that. Chicagoland, Debbie. I am a Midwest girl as well. I grew up in Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And we all wish we were from Chicago because it was a tiny, tiny little town where I grew up in. And Kent also, very cool. Amazing. So yeah, I am ready to share my knowledge. I have a bunch of tools that I would love to share with you guys, but I want to make it as relevant as possible to those of you who are watching. So please don't be shy and type in your questions into the chat. And I think the best way that we can get started, and Jess and I were already chatting about this before we started the recording, is I'd love to introduce you guys to my perspective on branding and my favorite tool that you can use to help define your brand. And like I introduced myself, I like to approach things from a psychology-driven perspective. So I have developed a tool that helps you identify the core human desires that live beneath your brand, the things that are actually going to connect people to your brand on an emotional gut level, as opposed to just the left brain logic. Because as many different studies have shown, different studies have different numbers, but up to 95% of human decision making happens in the subconscious or in the gut, in the places where we're not actively listening to our mental chatter. It's actually after the decision is made, we back it up with some of the logical reasons to buy. So brand archetypes are this tool that I love to use. And I have I'm just going to share my screen real quick here because I think it helps to have the visual. Oh, we have more people. Hello, Sharon. Hello, Susan, Tiffany, Megan, Waleed. Amazing. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Ask your questions there. And also, can everybody hear me okay? I would love to know if my volume is all right.
Sounds great on my end, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. Perfect. Cool. Yeah. I want this to be fun and interactive for all of you guys that are spending time with me today. So let me just share really quick. And I think Jess has the link so she can drop this in. It takes about 7 or 10 minutes. So you may want to just save it until after this Q&A to find out what your brand archetype is. But this page on my site here has this quiz that you can take. And I can answer a couple of the frequently asked questions that I get about it as well to help you move forward with greater understanding. So the first question that I get often when people are trying to figure out what their brand archetype is should I take the quiz based on me, or should I take the quiz based on my like a corporate brand or based on what I'm selling. And there's different ways of doing this. So if you have a larger team, so if you have a more than one visionary in your business or more than one founding leader in your business, then it makes sense to come to a mutual understanding. So in that case, you would take the quiz kind of as your brand or as the company. But if you are like most of us that I know, so you're selling courses, you're selling services, you are selling your expertise, these types of things, you might as well just take the brand quiz as yourself. Now, for those of you that are watching the replay, the brand quiz link will be included in the Google Doc that you receive along with this video recording. So that's where you find it if you're watching the replay after the fact. So the nice thing about the brand quiz is it helps you be yourself, but it gives you an actual tangible way to do that. It gives you a way to tap into what yourself actually is. What are the personality traits? What are the motivations that are going to help people connect to you? So definitely take, in like 80% of the cases, 90% of the cases, if you just take it as yourself, that's going to be wildly effective, because the more natural marketing yourself feels, the more sustainable it is, the easier it is to come up with marketing messages, with copy, with visuals that represent you, as opposed to trying to put on this persona or this face of what you think that your market wants from you, right? A lot of the clients that I come into contact with ask me like, okay, can I really be the girl next door archetype? Like, can I be that accessible and that casual? Won't my clients want me to be more professional? Shouldn't I be more corporate? Or shouldn't I sound like I know what I'm talking about? And that doesn't have to be independent. What really harms brands, especially in this world now that we're living in, where there's, hundreds of thousands of different options for anything that we're selling. There's lots of substitutions, and we need to resonate as deeply and as authentically as we can. So I'm a big believer in using the brand archetypes to help you do that. I would love to hear in the chat, what are you guys selling? What is your market? I can cater more of my answers to the types of businesses and industries that you guys are in. Elaine is selling an online course, as do I. A VA for authors and coaches. Amazing, Debbie. Helping Airbnb hosts automate their business, coaching and online learning, small business consulting, career coaching. Yeah, lots of stuff in common. Continuing education for professionals, counseling, therapeutic yoga, an online course and podcast. Amazing. Yeah, so in almost all of those cases, it's going to benefit you greatly to focus on, you don't necessarily have to be the face of your business or the face of your brand. If you have a fear about that, it is very effective to be the face of your brand, because humans buy from humans. So if you don't have a problem with that, then you're going to have an advantage, because you'll connect more easily personally when you're showing up in your business. But adopting a brand archetype doesn't mean that you have to be a personal brand. It can mean that you're just adopting a distinctive and emotional personality for your business. Jim is in writing from the heart and nature-based healing. Amazing. All of you guys, I would love to just acknowledge all of you for showing up today, because in this, should I use some of the keywords, right? In these unprecedented times, I can't count the number of times I've seen that word, but with everything that's going on, the work that you are doing is so important. And I know some of you might be just starting your online business now or recently, and some of you have been in business for a really long time. But no matter what you being here right now have a head start, and you have this incredible responsibility and duty and privilege to help other people do the same thing. And I'm so excited to hopefully help you do that a little bit better. Amazing. Amazing. All right. So that was probably the first frequently asked question. And another frequently asked question I get when it comes to branding is, should I name my business after my name? So should I be a actual personal brand, or should I create a company name? And the reason why I get this question so often is because there's no right answer, right? Like there's not the golden ticket when it comes to what you should name your business. I tend to prefer personal brand names, at least in like online coaching, service-based businesses, consulting, a lot of the types of businesses that you guys are in, because of one reason, and it's flexibility. Because as a human, your interests, your skills, your story is naturally going to grow and evolve over time. And if you are a personal brand, it gives you the unique ability to pivot whenever you need to, because people expect personal brands to have more, like width to them. They have more included in them because you're a human that has multiple interests. And of course, you don't want to be talking about everything, but being a personal brand does give you that ability to pivot and make shifts if you find that your business model needs to be shifted, or that your interests have just genuinely changed. You don't have to start from scratch. One of the biggest mistakes that I made when I first started my business is I started a blog called The Successful Military Wife. My husband's no longer in the military. He just recently got out. But that was what I knew. So that's the business name that I adopted for myself. And I realized very quickly within, I wished that I would have realized it even faster, but within a year of running that blog, I realized that I was unnecessarily limiting my audience, and I was limiting the impact that I could make in this world. Yes, I would love to answer that, Tiffany. Great question. So you don't want your name to unnecessarily limit the scale of your business. It's powerful to speak to a specific person, and I could have done that, and I actually did do that underneath my personal brand. Once I made the shift, I was still generally speaking to people who were trying to build location independent businesses, who were working from home, those types of things. But over time, my audience has drastically grown because I stopped limiting myself with that name, and I just switched over to kayeputnam.com. Another common mistake that I see, Tiffany, and for everybody else, is jumping to the tip of the iceberg when it comes to your brand, meaning what are my brand colors? What is my logo going to be like? What are the fonts that I'm going to use in my business? And just treating your brand like a design equation. When in reality, the whole base of the iceberg is what you need, or what you stand for. The foundation of your brand is your personality. It's your position in the market. It is your point of view. I have a fun exercise. I'll share it with you guys here. One of the most powerful things that you can do with figuring out your brand's unique point of view, which creates amazing content that you can share on social, on your email list, wherever you're showing up as your brand, is to do what I call the I believe exercise. And I love to share this one. I make all of my clients do it because it is so powerful for creating magnetic messaging that's going to draw people into you. So what you literally do is you write I believe down a piece of paper 10, 15, 20 times, and then you finish the sentence. And you don't limit yourself to just talking about your course or your industry. You let yourself dive into everything that you believe as a human being. And afterwards, you can use some discernment and figure out what you actually want to bring forward in your business. But for example, I have a client who sells baby equipment. And one of her belief statements that we uncovered is that she believes that parenting should be a shame-free environment. So we shouldn't be creating should do's or unnecessary restrictions or judging people for how we're parenting. I'm totally having one of those work from home quarantine moments, and my 4-year-old daughter just walked in here. You want to say hi? And then mommy's on a call, okay? Go see dad. All right, sorry guys. Sure, you can have a snack. Go eat some food. Yes, should is a 4-letter word. Like, and that belief doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the baby equipment, with the actual product that she's selling, but that's the human elements. That's the core, that's the heart of a brand that's actually going to connect with people. And the fun part is, once you have some of those core beliefs figured out, so you know like what kind of personality you're going to have, you know some of your point of view statements, you know your position in the market, then you start to translate that into the outward facing cues. So that helps inform the types of words that you're going to use. It helps inform the design decisions that you're doing, because colors, different color palettes have very different emotional symbolism, right? So if we see like red and blue and yellow, like bright primary colors, they're very high energy. It's almost kind of aggressive in our eyeballs, versus something that is built of like, you know, tans and nude colors and maybe soft peaches, which is actually her brand, because that feels much more comfortable. You start to communicate those deep, meaningful messages with every single decision that you're making for your brand. So if you don't start there with the foundation, then you start this wicked process of being inspired by some specific visual look, right? You're like, okay, I like that. I guess I'll do that for my brand. And then you either grow out of it or you start to get tired of it. And then you are in this cycle where you're rebranding every 6 or 12 months and you're losing all of the brand equity that you've built. So that's one major mistake that I see. And then another mistake that I see, and this one, I want to say it correctly, but like, you don't want to ignore your brand in the beginning, because a lot of people just push it off for later, right? But then there's this weird balance, because you don't want to spend too much time before you actually validate what you're selling and what your market is. So I actually don't take on agency clients who are just getting started in their business. So my agency style services are, you know, appropriately expensive because we have a full team that's building out brands for our clients on retainer basis, and we're doing everything for them. We're defining the strategy and we're also doing all the implementation work. But I don't accept clients who are just getting started, because often like when you're first getting started in business, you're going to pivot a few times in the beginning stages. When you're figuring out who your ideal client is, it's actually a lot like dating, where you're going to go on some bad dates. It's going to be terrible and awkward, and you thought that they were really great on paper, but then once you actually work with them, go on a date with them, then you realize, you're like, yeah, you know what, maybe that's not my ideal client avatar. So that's totally normal in the beginning process of building a brand. And there's just assumptions that you have to prove. You have to prove that you can sell what you think is going to sell in the market. And then once you have some of that initial traction, that's actually what I recommend, that people spend the more time, more investment on their brand to accelerate their success, right? So that mistake is kind of two edges of the same sword, right? Like, we don't want to just completely ignore our brand, because then you kind of get the 50 first dates situation where every time somebody comes into contact with you, there's no consistency. So they don't have any opportunity to build a relationship with you over time. But you also don't want to spend too much time spinning your wheels or obsessing over your brand before you just validate your business idea either. So there's kind of this happy medium where I truly believe that people can DIY the first version of their brand, and you probably should, because it takes a lot of that foundation work where you're figuring out who you are and what you stand for. And then also it shouldn't be expensive or super time consuming in the beginning. Jeff asked, how would you test brand perception? I would love to hear more context around that, Jeff. I'll kind of start to answer, but I would love to hear a little bit more about the context of why you're asking, or in what situation you would like to test brand perception. The easiest way to test brand perception is to pay attention to the leads and customers and sales that you are or aren't getting. To me, that is the best and most accurate feedback. Yes, you could do like focus groups. Yes, you could do polls to ask people how different things make them feel. But I sincerely believe and have discovered in my own business that the most accurate data is when people are voting with their dollars. So I pay very close attention to the types of clients that I'm attracting to sales calls, for example. I pay a lot of attention to the people in my Facebook group. Are they reflecting back to me the things that I'm putting out in the market? And what I mean by that is, and this is actually a good use of polls. I don't think that you should, so using tracking tools. What kind of tracking tools, Jeff? I can talk about a few that I know of and that I use. But so my Facebook group is a group of people who have at least opted in a little bit, right? So they haven't voted with their dollars yet. So it's not to the point where they generally have been on a sales call with me, but they're still they've opted in some way, like they joined my group, right? So one interesting thing that happened recently is I was deciding between a few different names for an upcoming program that I was going to launch. So I put it to my Facebook group and asked them which one that they liked the best. And and let me give a caveat here. You should never, you should never make your most important brand decisions by committee. I sincerely believe that, like, when you're getting your brand designed, when you're deciding what it stands for, when you're doing anything that is of great importance and that is going to be around for a long time, I don't recommend just putting it out to your audience or to your entire email list, or to even to your family and friends, because so often you know more about the business, you have a greater understanding. But I got into the naming down to the point where I had 6 names that I would be super happy with all of them. I was confident that they all represented my brand in different ways. And then the one that won by a landslide were words that I have been using in my brand for the last several years. So whenever I talk about my brand quiz, I always talk about it in the fact that you're finding your brand's innate advantage. So you're finding that thing that's already within you that gives you that unfair advantage, the innate advantage. And then the name that everybody overwhelmingly voted for in my Facebook group was the brand advantage for my newest program. So you start to get clues like that. You start to get feedback that people are resonating with your brand by the things that they're saying to you, especially in sales calls or on surveys, if at least people have been in your orbit for a while. So like on your email list or in a Facebook group, that kind of thing. And then in terms of tracking tools, as a small entrepreneur, things like tracking, I know that there's tools that larger brands use for things like tracking brand mentions, or I think that there's even tools that track brand sentiment. But because I'm not a multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar brand that people are constantly talking about, those tools don't have a lot of value. There's not enough data to analyze in my case, and probably in most of your cases. So I wouldn't distract yourself with that. Some simple tools that you can use to track your brand are just setting up Google alerts for your name or for any branded words that you use. So I get an email from Google Alerts anytime anybody posts Kaye Putnam online somewhere. So this can be really helpful, just tracking to see if sometimes like press will show up from like an interview or like a submission that I did even months ago. And then all of a sudden it pops online and I didn't get an email from the person who wrote it or whatever happens. It's just nice to know if there's conversations being had about your brand. So Google Alert is a great way to track that. There are, I mean, you could search, for example, like on Twitter for your name as well. I don't think that Google Alerts searches Twitter, just so that you're in the conversation if anybody is talking about you. I think that that's a great practice as a brand. But yeah, I think that that would be the extent. And then I'm also just tracking the growth, right? I'm tracking on Google Analytics, I'm tracking how many people are coming to my website and to my Teachable stores and where they're coming from, so that I can double down on the things that are working really well for me. And then I can kind of ignore or spend less time on the marketing platforms that aren't working as well for me. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, that would be kind of like tracking the efficiency of your brand and then also the perception of your brand with some of that direct feedback. Yes, amazing. Who else has questions? I was going to share a couple of my favorite tools with you guys if you're game for that. So beyond my brand quiz, and after you figure out kind of the core of your brand, I have a what am I trying to say, guys? I'm losing my words. Words are hard. I have a masterclass that helps you figure out the core of your brand. You can actually build this one right here, define your brand masterclass. You can build a one-page brand plan, which conquers that whole piece that I talked about that was so important to figure out. So this is all of the stuff that's before colors and fonts, but I'm gonna actually share some tools for the visual side of the brand as well. So my number one tool in figuring out how to express a brand, I literally do this with each of the clients that that I work with. I'm just gonna pull up the chat here. Okay, thanks, Jess. Is a Pinterest board. And probably all of the ladies on the call are familiar with Pinterest. Guys, maybe less so, because I think the platform is 80% women. But Pinterest is such an amazing tool to head over and find inspiration for your brand and then help you make decisions from that. So I teach this in much more depth in my branding courses. But for example, which brand is actually, these two are like kind of almost opposites of each other. So this brand is a young woman who is a maverick and a lover archetype. So we worked on this together. We went looking for things like fonts, colors, images, other brands, things that felt like her brand. Because once you know what your brand is, even if you're not a professional designer, you can search on Pinterest for keywords. So something like, I'm looking for a bold brand, or I'm looking for a feminine brand, or I'm looking for a natural looking brand. This client here is a sage and royal archetype. So you can see how even with that royal, no, Miss S, it doesn't have royal. She has some royal in her, but she has more maverick. But you can see how different a brand can feel when you're coming from a different point of truth. I always like to say, build your brand on truth, not trends. And this can be a beautiful tool to help you translate that truth into some visual cues, because you can almost see the color palette of this brand coming to life here in this board, similar to how you could see the color palette coming to life in this board, and they're completely different colors. And one thing that you can do with that is kind of fun is, I'm just going to take a screenshot of this board here. Jim, I think Jess can put that link in there again. And if you're watching the replay, the link for the brand quiz is going to be in that Google Doc that you guys get. So another fun branding tool that I love is coolers.co. Thanks, Jess. And you can generate color palettes based on images. with this tool. So I'm just going to really quick upload that screenshot that I just took, and I'm going to show you guys how cool this is. Coolers.co. So it automatically generates colors, and they've just changed how this works literally since the last time I've been on here. But it can, if you slide the slider, it'll just keep showing you options based on the image that you uploaded. So in general, when you are building a brand, you're looking for a couple different colors that you want to nail down. The first one would be the color that you're known for. So your primary brand color. In this case, maybe it would be this dark green. You're also going to want a dark neutral and a light neutral. So something that could be text colors. It doesn't have to be black and white, but it could be close to black and close to white, like this one. You also want a secondary color that's kind of an accent to your main one, just to give you a little bit more variety and direction. And then you want a contrast color, which is going to be your call to action and link color. So if I open this up, oh, that was actually, I thought it was a dark brown. See, like I said, it doesn't have to be black. This is actually a very dark purple. I don't know if you can see it on your screen because it's going to depend on how your screen is optimized, but this is actually a very dark purple, and this one's just a very, very light gray. So those could be your dark neutral and your light neutral, and this would work fabulously as a call to action button. So that's one of my favorite tools that I use in conjunction with Pinterest. And then I was just going to show you one other, it's actually more of a resource. I can type this one in just. So if you're naming anything, and naming is one of the most important things you can do for your brand to create brand ownership over things. So I always recommend to my clients and students that you not only have your name, which might be your name or might be a company name, but that you're naming your products and potentially your proprietary process. So my proprietary process is called the Clarity Code process. And it's what I use with my one-on-one clients to build their psychology-driven brand. But by naming it, you create ownership. And this website here is just this like massive link directory of brainstorming options or help that you can use to create some of these names. So it might be a little bit overkill or might be a little bit overwhelming, but if you're feeling stuck or like you don't have the creative juice to come up with some really unique names, or you just need help brainstorming a bunch of options for names, this guide here is extremely well done. I refer back to it often. So yeah, I hope that those tools are helpful for you. Brand quiz, first of all. And then I have this website here on my site that that just links to each of the 12 archetypes. So for example, if I wanted to just explore around each of the 12 archetypes to learn more about them, I always tell people that you have veto power whenever you take the brand quiz. You don't have to take it as gospel, because sometimes we just answer the questions in a weird way, and naming is hard, Sarah. And your intuition will guide you. So especially if you like read all of the 12 descriptions, you're going to be naturally pulled in a certain direction. And then each of these pages have a little video that you can watch to help explain what the archetype is. It has a masterclass if you want to learn more about archetypes in general, some examples, and a link to the Pinterest board that visually shows what each of the archetypes stand for as well. And then there's a free resource that gives you some example colors and words and something else in there too. You'll have to download it. I can't remember actually at this moment. But yeah, there's tons of resources over on my site that can help with this whole branding equation as well. So I hope this was fun. It was a little bit meandering. I think we went in a few different directions. If anybody has any more questions, I would love to answer them. But if not, we can wrap up a little early and do that. I would love to hear just in the chat what branding is blank. Like, what is branding hard? Is branding confusing? What is branding to you right now? I'd just love to hear a smattering of replies. for what your current perception of branding is. I think this may be fun. Crucial. I agree, Jeff. Hard, yes. Overwhelming. Lots of pieces. Yeah. Different than in the past. So true. So true. We used to be able to reach the masses with any type of media that we were advertising on. Now, there is so much customization and segmentation in the market that we're really just trying to reach our people. And we might not have a massive audience, and we honestly don't need it anymore. We just need to create powerful relationships with the right people. Yeah, while they should be authentic and feel like an extension of myself, you're going to love the brand quiz. It is very helpful for that. Sarah says, branding is expensive. It can be when my team is we're expensive when you're hiring us to do everything, but there's so much that you can do on your own, especially if you know the steps to take. And I have lots of free resources. Actually, I have a pretty robust YouTube channel that has lots of free branding resources. And if anybody wants a step-by-step process for building your own brand, I have a course called Brand New Brand. Thanks, Jess. And Brand New Brand walks you through the process on your own. So you could build out the entire thing without hiring anybody else. Yeah, adapting to the times. And that's actually maybe a great point that I can leave you guys on, is branding has a few different pieces, right? It has who you are, but then it has this context. I always like to say, and it has never been more relevant, but if we're building a business or a brand amidst the zombie apocalypse, your messaging would be completely different. The way that you showed up would be completely different. And it's just a reminder for all of us here that in the midst of everything that's going on in the world with the pandemic, and there's going to be different things that happen, at any point in time, is you always want to adapt what you're doing to the context that your brand is living in. Hey, we got more questions. Sharon asks, should every course fit under a single brand? If they all have a similar audience, yes, I would put them under a umbrella brand. And then each course in itself becomes this little brand, right? Like for me, my umbrella is kayeputnam.com, and then I have Brand New Brand. I have Brand Fluency, which are my archetype courses, and then I have my new one, which is called the Brand Advantage. So they all have similar looks and feels and colors and all of those things because they're all underneath the umbrella of kayeputnam.com, but they all have like their own logos and a little bit of their own messaging, and it's like little segments of my audience. I'm speaking to online entrepreneurs with all of them, but they fulfill different needs or they fulfill different pain points. Ian asks, people are asking me a lot, what is my avatar? What does this mean? Ian, your avatar is a description of your ideal customer or your ideal client. So I have a love-hate relationship with ideal client avatars because so much of it is an assumption until you go through that dating process or that self-segmentation process of trying to work with different clients if you're a service provider, or seeing who resonates with the message that you're putting out. I am under the assumption that there's more than enough customers and students and course buyers for all of us. And if we're true to who we are, the right people are naturally going to self-select and be attracted to you. So those become your ideal client avatar. And as you attract more and more of them, it should be your mission to have conversations with them, to learn about them. To this day, when I'm getting on a sales call with a potential course student or a potential one-on-one client, I am constantly writing down the phrases that people are using when they talk about branding, or what the phrases that they use when they talk about what they desire, or the phrases that they use when they're talking about what they're frustrated with. Those things become gold for writing your course sales pages or your service sales pages, whatever you're selling. And then also for writing your homepage copy, it helps you connect in an authentic way. So that would be another takeaway for you guys. Start that voice journal that you keep by your side whenever you're having conversations. And if you haven't had very many conversations with people that could be your potential clients or customers, make it your goal to have more of them. Even if it's just a free conversation where you're offering like free advice to them in exchange for their time. Tiffany asked, are there any particular times that you recommend we avoid making big branding decisions during? To me, the only bad time to make a really big branding decision would be that beginning phase before you have any validation for what your business is. Once you've been clipping along and you know who you are and generally who you're serving and who you're selling to, at any point, investing in your brand, either in time or money, is going to give you a return on investment when it's done well. I like to liken your branding as the vehicle that you're going in. So you can choose to ride a rickety bicycle and you'll get where you're going eventually. Or you could upgrade to like a Tesla or whatever, insert carb choice here. Like you could upgrade the vehicle that you're driving your business in, and things are going to happen faster and easier because you're going to create demand for your brand. Your brand exists for two reasons: to increase demand and to support higher prices. So if it's not doing those things, if it's not attracting people to you, and it does take work on your end, like you have to be showing up. But if it's not attracting, then it's probably not doing its job. Susan, a personal gravatar. There's something called a gravatar that is just kind of a technology thing where you can create a gravatar account, and then when you're commenting on other blogs, your either your little icon or your photo will show up. I'm not sure if that's the same thing that you're talking about or not, but if it's not, then I'm not sure on that question. Sarah asked, what are your thoughts on changing a company name 1 year after starting the business? It's always a decision where you understand that you're going to lose some of the brand equity that you've built whenever you're changing something as massive as your business name. So sometimes it's worth sticking with an okay name if you've built up a lot of a reputation or people really know you for your name. But if it's just all wrong for the direction that you want to go in, for like me, if I would have just stuck with this successful military wife blog, I probably wouldn't be speaking to you guys right now because my audience was just teeny tiny and it had so much more potential. So if you have a lot more potential with a new name, if you think that it's going to resonate and represent you better in a massive way, then I wouldn't shy away from doing it. It's just a matter of drawing a line in the sand, making sure that you bring your existing audience along for the ride, like explain why you're making the name change, let them know in advance so that they feel like they're a part of the journey, and then just go forward with a new name. Jim, I'm still unclear on what an avatar is and where to use it. It's your inner knowing. It's knowing how to speak to the people that you're trying to sell to. And it's hard to know how to speak to somebody that you're selling to if you don't know who that person is. So your client avatar is literally a description, a made up description, hopefully informed by research and experience of who this person is. So a lot of times people talk about their avatar like, my avatar's name is Lucy. She is 35 years old. She lives in New York City. She's single. She goes to farmers markets on the weekends. She loves to play online Catan with her friends. Like, they build out this description of this person's values, lifestyle, and demographics so that when you're writing a sales page, you can use examples or stories that are going to resonate with that particular avatar. And then for me, that exercise only has so much usefulness. So what I really like to do is, like I said, build that voice bank of the things that my ideal clients, AKA my ideal client avatars, are actually saying. So they say things like, I just want brand clarity. So you'll see on all of my website or all of my different sales pages and things, I use that phrase, brand clarity, over and over and over again, because they have told me that that's what they desire. So there's a few different ways of looking at it. That's why it's confusing, but I hope that helps your understanding. Dun, dun, dun. Tiffany asked me a question privately, and yes, you may, absolutely. Carl asked, should I have different websites for coaching and online training courses? I personally do not. And again, this is a little bit of that benefit of the personal brand, because I can stick all of my things underneath my one personal brand. But I think as long as your coaching clients and your online course clients are similar and they don't require completely different messaging, of course your sales page is going to have different messaging, because the person that's buying coaching has different pain points and different desires than the person who's buying a course that they're going to work through on their own, right? Like, those pain points, that messaging is going to be different on those different sales pages. But as long as the person is generally the same, I would put it all on one website. I'm a huge fan of simplicity. So the less that you need to create to get these things to market and to help more people, the better that is. So I would recommend, if at all possible, putting it under one site. Thank you, guys. Amazing. All right. Jess, do you recommend that we wrap up? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we've answered all the questions. Kaye, thank you. Can we give a big thank you to Kaye in the chat? This was such a nice way for people to be able to dive into just like very specific questions that we have. Because I think a lot of the times we can watch workshops and webinars and have all these questions that we just don't get answered. So yeah, and seeing lots of great things here in the chat. Waleed loved the quiz results, spot on. Yes, yeah, so, everyone watching the replay, all of the resources, even the color picking tool, has been added into the PDF or the Google Doc that you received. So don't worry, it is all there. Kaye, thank you so much for being here. I guess any other way we can stay in touch with you outside of the quiz, YouTube? Kaye
Putnam. I mean, I'm on kayeputnam.com. So if you guys join my email list on any manner of ways there, then I'll stay in touch and keep sharing as many amazing branding resources as I can.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kaye. Thank you all for being here. And yeah, I hope you guys stay safe and well as well.
Yes, stay safe and well. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I appreciate all of you for showing up, and Jess for having me. Thanks.
Thank you.